do it. Be back. Be not back. We need to get a real producer in here. Worst. And we are live. Welcome to the NBA strategy show. That makes me incredibly happy to say because it's not as fun when I say MLB or NFL. So NBA strategy show is here. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined to open the season with my partner in crime. We've done a lot of these together. Chris Spags in the house. Bet365 is the sponsor. We've got promos. We've got basketball. I don't know where to start. I'm too excited. I've already got content out. We've got content that isn't even useful anymore. Bradley Beal not playing tonight. It's going to be a hell of a day. Spags, what's up?
I'm excited to be here. Greg Ehrenberg finally called into court for all of the misdeeds he's done over his years. No, he's actually there for jury duty, so I got to fill in today, got the last minute call. And Josh, what better way to ring in a new season of NBA than a star player getting ruled out the 5 minutes before we do this show?
So can we talk about jury duty for a second before we get started here?
The Pauly Shore
He didn't have to go anywhere.
Wait, what?
You just sign into a gigantic Zoom call.
Oh, that's different than when I had to go last time I served.
I have two separate videos from him. It's a complete tire fire. Nobody knows how to use their computer. Nobody's muting themselves. They can't turn their cameras on. And I don't know how that process works. Greg is either going to be in jury selection for the rest of his life, or they're just going to quit immediately because it doesn't seem like that is a process that can continue the way that he showed it to me.
Well, maybe they know he's an expert of doing these kind of online calls, online content. So he's going to be there giving out the hottest sim picks for the day. And they're going to be like, hey, we got this court case. Hey, it's New Jersey. We got court over here.
Tip off, promo code tip off. Trying to get these people in. That's decent Italian there. I don't want to say
it's generalized Jersey.
A little Italian. I don't want to say this out loud because it's probably going to cost me here, but I'm in the process of watching The Sopranos for the first time. So that voice rang very true to me.
Oh, it's a great show. Definitely, a lot of things you probably don't put on TV in the 2020s age of things, but Tony Soprano, flawed, brilliant character, inspirational. Amazing. As a young Italian man growing up in the tri-state area.
Hilarious for sure. I think, and I said this to an Italian buddy of mine, has obviously seen the show countless times at this point in time, lives the life. I think the show is better now than it was live then because of how much they do on the show that you're not allowed to do anymore.
I think that's a fair assessment. I think the other part too is that you don't have 3 years between seasons. So if you just watch now, you're getting in and you don't have to wait for these conclusions that they just stack up and sometimes never wrap up. But it's a great show. Definitely is like, it's not timeless. Like it's clearly of a period in time, but it is like, I imagine it'll be good for the next 50 years. Gen Z might disagree. They're probably like, that show, only old guys.
That's why I love it. Everything that they do, every ridiculous thing that is said by somebody, it makes me happier because you can't, like, people would shun that now. So I'm enjoying it twice as much because of how much you haven't been allowed to be like that. I love it so much.
I just enjoy them eating. Like, I think them eating is a delight. Even the visceral quality of how Tony eats, where it's like you really can feel.
He's an animal, dude. He's a total animal.
In many
ways. Yeah. Dude, we got NBA back. Tim Quarterman, not on a roster to my knowledge.
Yeah, he might be playing for the Suns tonight. He might be one of the wing players that are going to fill in for Bradley Beal.
They could use him, I'm sure. So for those of you that aren't aware, we're going to start with the news. 20 minutes ago or so, we get word Bradley Beal doesn't look like he's going to be playing today. I've already put in an hour and change in the process show, looking at all of this stuff. Now, I'm not saying that I was handing out all the goods for day one, but we did get news already. How this show normally works, we go game by game, we break down everything, we sum it all up at the end. On 2-game slates like today, we'll go team by team. It'll be a little bit different, but this is the gist of what the NBA strategy show looks like on a daily basis. Monday through Friday, you're going to see me here with a rotating cast of characters. Lots of Spags this week. Greg, Adam will be back from stripper rehab or whatever it was called earlier in chat. He'll be back, I think, next week,
I
but we
thought he
shall
was
see.
finally paying for a Nautilus rack to stretch himself out. Sorry, Adam. He's not here. He can't defend himself. Say something mean.
He ain't listening either, so that much I do know. So yeah, shout out to Bet365 for being the sponsor. We're going to talk about the promo that we're running to start the season a little bit later. And we're going to, if anybody has any questions while we're doing this, we've got a hard out at 11 o'clock. That doesn't really matter too much for today. For tomorrow, on the other hand, with the 12-game slate that we'll need to break down, that'll be quite the journey, but it's going to be fun. The NBA is back. Guys, thanks for being here. 300 plus people in the door. We need to soar that like number up. It's at 65 now. 100 at a minimum needs to happen the moment you hear this. Chris Williams, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. I know, let's see who got them. All right. Like SMP certainly didn't need that gift, but I'm sure he's happy to get it. Nice to see. Maybe I'll get one day.
Do you choose who the gifts go to, or does it just randomly give?
Random. Random. You ready to talk some basketball?
I've been dying for it. Dying since I saw that Bradley Beal wasn't playing.
Look, it feels like every other season if Bradley Beal is somehow out.
Not sure. They know what they were getting in this trade. Like, it was clearly part of the buyer beware contract.
Yeah. He's like the guard Karl Anthony Towns. No, that's not who I was looking for. Who was it? The guard Anthony Davis. He's just like permanently like a little bit hurt.
More likable, better eyebrows as well.
Is AD unlikable?
I think he's got an unlikable air. I mean, Jordan might attest here with the Lakers jersey over his shoulder, but Lakers fans, I feel like, make him more intolerable. And I think the whole courtship to LA made him a little borderline. The Q rating went down when he forced his way out of New Orleans, I think.
I don't think I've ever heard him speak.
Yeah, I bet he's got a deep voice. I'm pretty confident in that.
It'd be funny if it was like ultra high pitched, like mine sort of.
Yeah, just because all the times he's been hurt, he's just gotten shots to the nuts, and the pitch goes up and
yeah, like I don't think I know anything about him.
Yeah, I think he probably likes it that way. He likes to be a little bit anonymous, but he wants the clout, and he kind of has it that way.
Fair. Well, we're not talking about the Philadelphia. I'm not on my game yet, guys. Too many different sports. There's no Phoenix team in any other sports for me. We're not talking Phoenix to start. We are talking about Anthony Davis's Lakers. Yeah, I'm saying Anthony Davis's Lakers. Or LeBron's Lakers? I don't know. Is it Austin Reeves' Lakers? You must be like the biggest Austin Reeves stan.
No, I think because again, the Lakers part of it, it's like they think he's so great. And I think he's, I don't know, Jason Capono. Like, he's every guy.
Come on. Jason Capono.
Of time. I don't. He's Chetty Osman. He's Max Strus. He's all these guys with like the perception of clutch because he's playing on primetime games for the Lakers. I don't know. He's okay. He's not a great DFS play tonight, I don't think.
Ouch. That had to hurt. All right, let's talk Lakers. We're going to talk a lot about ownership for today, rotations, high level stuff. We don't have enough information, myself or you. We don't know like the nitty gritty of this stuff yet. End of the bench type stuff, hypotheticals, best we could talk about. But we need to be a little bit more vague than we normally are. And that's where we're going to start. I say we start at the top of the heap. We've got LeBron James. We've got Anthony Davis. They are owned pretty comparably, but not much. Anthony Davis in our last run projected for 18% ownership. LeBron James in our last run at 9,300 on DraftKings projected for 7% ownership tonight. I think those numbers will wiggle a little bit once Beal gets in. Although with Beal's price on DraftKings being so low, he's sort of a different kind. He was a different kind of play today. Do you see Anthony Davis and LeBron James as more interesting because of that ownership?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two things that come up. And obviously, if you're new to the NBA Sims or haven't played with the NFL Sims, whenever I see a player who we know has slate breaking upside who's not coming up a lot sim-wise, the projection seems a little bit iffy, I tend to be a little bit more drawn to them, especially on this kind of short slate. And LeBron, for me in the Sims before the show that I ran, was coming up less than 1% of the time. Obviously, the ownership as well, not looking too high, as Josh mentioned, projected for under 10% ownership right now. That's going to move without Bradley Beal. But if you get LeBron, and it's hard to expect him to be full go at this time of year and this kind of matchup, but he did go full go at Denver in the playoffs. Certainly, did everything he could there, had some monster 40-10-10 games in that series before obviously things went askew for them. So I don't mind the play at all. It's a tough price tag, but again, 2-game slate, anytime you have that guy with that upside and he's just not going to be owned that much, I think you have to be willing to go there, even though, the minutes, a gigantic risk, I have to assume.
I was shocked to see LeBron's ownership. Like, it makes some sense in the context of the slate as you look through it. If you want to pay $9,300 for LeBron or $700 more for Nikola Jokic to get like 15 more points of projection, you start to understand why it's happening. But you also look at it and it's just like, it's a 2-game slate. Like, I feel like LeBron's chances of being the highest scorer might be higher than 7%. And like, you immediately have to have him at that point. I think his ownership probably comes in a little bit higher because his name is LeBron James. It's just one of those situations where it's going to shake out like that. As I look at it now, let's see how much I ended up with on my previous run. So I ran a sim prior to the Bradley Beal news, which will change things. I was getting to about 11%, so not too far, not too dissimilar from the field. Reminder, I'm going to talk about this a lot. Individual ownership, don't get too bogged down on it. You can make your changes elsewhere. If you see Nikola Jokic is 60% owned, don't immediately think you need to run away from that. You can make plenty of lineups without him. You can make plenty of lineups with him. All of them can have very positive ROIs for the day, regardless of the status of any one individual player. Would you rather have Anthony Davis or LeBron James?
Projection wise, I think it's Anthony Davis, but for the tournament play of it, I think you go to LeBron and hope that he somehow keeps it competitive, and that keeps Jokic on the floor a little bit longer. I mean, we're going to talk about Phoenix Golden State. Obviously, we've got a lot of time to luxuriate and all this stuff, but I think that's sort of the same thing for that game as well, where if Phoenix isn't blowing out Golden State, it's probably because Steph had an outlier day, or, I guess Klay Thompson maybe could. I don't know. Somebody there probably having an outlier day to keep up with a much more overpowered Phoenix team. I think the same thing for the Lakers here, where if they're in this game, it's probably because LeBron did a pretty good job, stayed on the floor for 4 quarters and kept it competitive, maybe put up a triple-double. So I think LeBron's interesting, but, the projection, if you're playing cash, like Davis is an infinitely better play, probably.
Yeah, I don't think you're getting to either one of those guys in that scenario. The highest owned guy in our last run, at least per our boom bust tool, for the Los Angeles Lakers today, Taurean Prince.
Yeah, he's going to get, 20 minutes? So I guess that could do it.
At a minimum, 20. I mean, looking like he's starting with no Jared Vanderbilt today. So for those that didn't know, no Jared Vanderbilt. When that first popped up on my phone yesterday, it was like Jared Vanderbilt out for season, and then opener was like on the next line, and I was like, oh my God, he's out for the year. And I opened it up really quick, and I was just like, I don't see any news from Woj or Shams or anything like that. It was just the underdog update. And I was like, oh, it says opener. It's not news. I don't care. But I freaked out thinking he was done for the year. So yeah, Taurean Prince in the starting lineup, 3,500 on DraftKings today. Small forward, power forward eligible, projected for massive ownership. I don't want to say like it makes sense, but it makes sense. I mean, if you're moving into the starting lineup, sub 4K, you're going to play, you would think, a minimum of 20 minutes, maybe upwards of 24. Maybe he closes, maybe he doesn't. I don't expect him to close, but even if you're not expecting him to close, you're getting 3 full rotations of a starter at 3,500. MPE, I like the value option.
Yeah, I think he looks pretty good. Certainly there's going to be more value that opens up on the Phoenix side as well. And I think ultimately it comes down to, which guy's going to be the highest owned out of that cheap group, where it's Prince, it's Okogie. It's probably going to be, I think, Grayson Allen, maybe Eric Gordon, depending on how the minutes shake out, who's expected to pick up a little more run there without Bradley Beal. But I think this ultimately comes down to, on the slate, it's obviously we talked about LeBron, the ceiling he has. For these cheap guys, it's just which one's going to be the highest owned, which one do you need to pivot off of at the highest owned to allow the actual good players to do the work. And I think Taurean Prince right now looks very appealing as one of those cheap players that gets in the mix. But Okogie right now looks a lot higher on the Sims. So I think that makes Prince more appealing. But Okogie, a little more secure role, a little more opportunity just to do the dirty work around. Okogie's a better play, but I think if Prince ends up, half his own, I'd rather play Prince.
There's just not a lot of ownership coming into this Lakers team right now. Prince at the top end, 39%. Austin Reeves at 22. The only person that's on the Lakers that you would call chalk is Prince. Like 22% ownership to Austin Reeves on a 4-team slate is just not a large number at all. D'Angelo Russell at 18, AD at 18, everybody else basically unowned. Are you seeing anything for the Lakers that you like more than the ownership? Because basically you can take whatever you want from the Lakers and feel pretty good knowing that it's at least a slight differentiation in your lineup.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot that really jumps out projection wise, like the tournament theory of some of this stuff. Like, what if Christian Wood has a bigger role? I don't know that's going to be the case, but like he's clearly a guy that fantasy point per minute wise can put up enormous numbers. 1.2 fantasy points per minute last year, 1.12 would be the projection I have for him tonight. So I don't mind Christian Wood as kind of that flyer, but projection wise, he looks gross. Yeah, same thing for Rui Hachimura, who has kind of the inverse problem. We're not a great fantasy point per minute guy, and also not a good projection either. So like these guys to me, like if you're probably pulling, the one-off tournament guy who can have some upside and get you there, I think there's a good shot it's a Laker. But if you're running just like Fantasy Crutcher, just running an optimizer, none of these guys have a projection that's anything noteworthy. So these are the lineups you're making that might even have a negative ROI in the Sims tool. But if they have a win rate of 0.04%, like I'm playing some of these lineups just because just anybody on the Lakers is going to get you more unique.
It's Christian Wood is so difficult because he's center only. If he had the power forward eligibility, you can open him up to just being like, well, maybe they'll just play him more. Maybe he hasn't been an asshole yet, and he gets the minutes. Like he's way more likely to get minutes on day 1 than like day 30 because of
what does he do?
Him.
Like, what is wrong with him that he can't find a home to love him?
I don't think he's like, if I remember correctly, he had like not the best past early, but that is like sort of long gone. He's just sort of like, I mean, like the most like personal, boastful asshole. I get the sense that he's like me to the nth degree in a locker, like me if I had NBA skills.
Okay, I could see
like,
that makes a lot of sense.
Insufferable. Nobody wants him around. This dude's been on 100 teams.
Yeah, I love the talent. Like I'm always a big fan of, just his ability to put up fantasy points per minute. Like every stop he's been at, before he kind of became a contracted guy who's getting big money, I always loved him. And now it's just like, he just never lived up to that hype of what he could produce in terms of just the scoring, in terms of the rebounding, the blocking. And he's also like not a good small ball 5. And he's also not a great, big 4 either. So I guess that sort of puts him in a tough spot in the modern NBA. But the tournament upside, like if this game goes south, if Denver smokes the Lakers, like Christian Wood might be out there for blowout run, I would think, and could put up 30, in 20 minutes.
I think the interesting talking point here is what if Anthony Davis picks up any foul trouble? Who ends up seeing more minutes? Is that Rui, Jackson Hayes, more for Taurean Prince? Do they slide everybody down? Is it Cam Reddish? Is it more Christian Wood? I think there's someone in the backup section of the Lakers at no ownership that is primed to be a guy that plays a little bit better and plays a little bit more. You get like 2 to 3 extra minutes and you have your 65th percentile outcome. All of these guys are like 1% owned. I think there's something sneaky in the Lakers rotation, but pointing to whoever that is, I don't see it yet because we just don't have enough information. But Rui, Hayes, Wood, Reddish, there's something there.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think these are the guys you take flyers on. Nobody I would imagine you want to really have your night live and die by. No. But mixing in one Laker who's not, a core Laker, I think, is probably a way to get different. And again, that Phoenix stuff, I think, is really going to change the slate, right? Obviously right before our eyes.
Well, do you have anything else you want to add for the Lakers? I think they're the easiest team to talk about.
No, I think we covered it well. The one thing I will take a lump on for Austin Reeves, and I didn't look at his 23 numbers that closely. 69% true shooting is pretty crazy for Austin Reeves. Obviously, I would expect that to be due for regression, given that Steph Curry put up 65%. So maybe Austin Reeves starts the year a little bit cold, but that's a crazy number for a guy who's got up as many shots as Austin Reeves did.
So he was out for a big stretch of like late June and or late January and like right at the beginning of February. And when he came back as like a legitimate high caliber NBA starter. We'll see what that is over a couple months. But I mean, shot 40% from 3, shot 75% at the rim. That's probably an unsustainable number for someone of his size. But even if you bring that down, he was a much above average efficiency guy last year. Anxious to see what it ends up looking like. I'm only going to say this once, folks. I don't want to have to repeat myself. I don't ever want to repeat this. Shout out to Drop Roses, first man on the Austin Reeves bandwagon.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who would have guessed?
New year, new Josh. I'm willing to give credit to people that don't deserve it, but in this case, he does.
Better than Jason.
That's going to shut down chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like. Trust me, I don't like what I just said. I do like this, however. Our schedule for the rest of the day. Coming up after this, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, NFL strategy show. NFL is not going anywhere, folks. That will still be in that 11 o'clock spot every single day. NHL strategy at 2 p.m. I think today is a massive NHL slate, like 11, 12, 13, get something crazy. Real big NHL slate. So if you're in the NHL streets, make sure you're watching our NHL strategy show at 2. And then you know where we're going. NBA Deeper Dive tonight at 5:30. We'll go for an hour. That will be myself and what I thought was going to be a surprise until I was reminded by my fellow companymen, Jordan and Spags, that, well, the names are just written in the description of the video. So this is no longer a secret. Myself and Dave Loughran, Lofty and I are going to break down these 2 games on the Deeper Dive tonight. We'll probably do about 5 minutes on the games and 55 minutes on who the hell knows. So make sure you tune into that. And then NBA Live before lock tonight, 6:30. Maybe Greg will be done with his jury duty Zoom call.
I hope he has to pay for his actions finally. That's what I'm hoping for. Also, did you see what the NHL is doing where it's like games starting 15 minutes after the other, or I think it's 15. Like they're doing like this weird thing where all 32 teams are playing and it's 15 minutes separating each puck drop. So it's like actually a very cool idea. I don't care about hockey, but I'm happy that Jake and the boys are finally in their sweet spot.
Good for them. That would be a death sentence in the NBA. Could you imagine just getting news every 15 minutes for 3 hours? Oh my God. I wouldn't even play. I wouldn't even play this late.
The good news with this new sim tool is the late swap tool on the sims. Like, you can churn that stuff out fast. So that's if the NBA did schedule that. You don't have to get the plug-in right away, but you actually could make a go of it.
You could
have in previous years.
Oh, you'd never be better set up to do that than right now with our Sims tool, which we will touch on after we touch on the Nuggets. But at the same time, just because we made it easier doesn't mean that's going to be fun. That would be a shitload of work.
No, it wouldn't be a good time, but it'd be efficient. That's all.
You'd be at your desk from 6. You would have to sit in front of the computer from 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock, bar none.
Wouldn't be a good time.
No. Denver Nuggets, the reigning, defending, undisputed champions of the world, back, starting 5, same as before. They are primed and ready to go. And the last time that we saw this Lakers-Nuggets matchup did not go well for the Lakers. So ownership on the Nuggets, slightly different than what we saw for the Lakers. The starting 5 is juiced to the gills. 62% ownership to Jokic. 50 to Aaron Gordon, 40 to Jamal Murray, 30 to 35 on Michael Porter Jr. and KCP. If you were paying attention at the beginning of this show and heard the Lakers stuff, this is a very different environment, starting with the best player on the planet, Nikola Jokic. 10K, a price tag that is not representative of his talent level. There's a reason he's in 62% of lineups. He's the best play today, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to dislike anything about him fantasy-wise. Hard to dislike him as a player, what he did last year, his love of horses, all things that are great. But I think, the prices are too low. I know you and Greg talked this in your salary preview show last week or so, where it's like, he's too cheap for what he does. He's too cheap for even a mid-game for him. Like, I don't know how he doesn't get there. I guess it's egregious foul trouble, but and maybe there's other ways, like if LeBron hits, if 2 of the Suns hit, maybe Jokic doesn't make that lineup. But the pure floor of scoring at this price tag, being under 11K on a 2-game slate, just feels like a broken price.
Yeah, he is the most optimal player today, because his projection is just on a completely different level. We have him projected today for 61.5 fantasy points. The next closest guy, which I didn't expect, is Steph Curry, 14 points below him. You don't see those gaps all that frequently.
Yeah, it's a tough projection. I mean, sim wise, he's still coming up a lot too. So I don't see where the flaw is. Like Josh mentioned, projected for 63% ownership. I got him 72% in the sim. Like, you can make the case, you just put him in every lineup, but I don't think that's how the game theory of it will work for me tonight. No. I think that Jokic, though, is just a great play on a night where, if you don't want to worry about it, I wouldn't hate you for just locking in Jokic. Yeah.
And there are plenty of other center options if that's a direction you want to go. Like I said, you can build a lot of positive ROI lineups that do not include Nikola Jokic. Do not think that you cannot do that. but it's not going to feel great. But that's not what we're not playing for the feels. We're playing for the money.
And some of the feels. I like the feels a little.
How you feeling about the rest of this starting lineup? Because as I look at it, I have no problem getting to any of these dudes. 32% KCP at 4,800 without the MPE feels a bit aggressive to me, but these guys are going to be out there for 30 plus minutes at a minimum. I think, maybe a little bit less, well, right around 30 for Gordon and for MPJ. But I mean, we know this lineup. They're outstanding. I have no problem with that ownership. Those guys should be heavily owned.
Yeah, they all look like great plays to me. I guess the one that I could maybe find it harder to get to is Jamal Murray, just because I do like the Suns players a little bit more, especially with Beal being out. More usage opening up is going to be a great thing for them. But like Murray, Porter, Gordon, KCP, probably the least out of that group. They all project well. Gordon, what he did last year, I think finding his role in this Denver offense and really starting to be back to being a fantasy point per minute guy. Like that's an impressive thing that he did. Because I feel like that first season or the first half season in Denver, he just kind of didn't know where to fit in. And last year kind of really rounded into form, and don't expect that to change this year. So all these guys to me, like they're going to come up a lot in an optimizer. I would say setting a limit wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world, or maybe you're only getting 2 of them just because they all are going to pop in pretty easily. But on their face, like they're all really good plays, and I really can't nickel and dime any of them besides KCP by a little bit.
Yeah, we're on the same page. I like Michael Porter Jr. a little bit more than I like Aaron Gordon, and I think that's going to be a differentiation point for me today, because those guys are the opposite of what I just said in the ownership. And I have that projected a little bit differently. We'll see how that all hashes out by the time we get to the end of the day. But I would not be surprised if I end up a little bit heavier on Michael Porter Jr. and a little bit lighter on Aaron Gordon as a way to sort of flip the ownership on the Nuggets.
Yeah, I think Gordon looks like the better projection play to me, but obviously in a tournament, having the better projection play is going to mean you probably have the better ownership play. I guess the one thing I could see that's kind of interesting is maybe you go to Jokic and Murray and just say the production really consolidates with those 2 guys. Like Murray, we all know, can set off a nuke any kind of day. Shout out our pal Eric Lindquist, of course, always setting off nukes at some point.
You're about to get banned.
Jamal, yeah, he loves them. But Jamal Murray, I think, is like he's the one guy that I could see can ruin the night for those 3 guys. But I think your approach of just like swapping Porter and Gordon, probably a more logical way to get there and get a little more ceiling and maybe a little bit less floor.
The problem with the Nuggets, and I use the term problem very loosely, it's really hard to go to anybody else. When you have a starting 5 that is also your closing 5, like I'd be very surprised if they wiggle that in any way, barring foul trouble or injury. The highest owned guy that isn't one of the starting 5 is 6% owned Justin Holiday. You have Christian Brown as a more important member of the bench, but not really all that important during a regular season game. Reggie Jackson, probably backup point guard, Zeke Naji, backup center. Is it Peyton Watson? Is it Julian Strother? I don't think that any of these guys are going to get enough minutes where you feel great about it. And I think that's why you're seeing it in the ownership with Holiday at 6%. I think you really are just focusing on the starting 5 for the Nugs.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think one of these guys being a flyer, like Reggie Jackson, we know can also go off in a short burst. 4,100, I could see him being a play to get a little bit of in tournaments. But like besides that, these guys are all pretty soft. I know Strother had some nice preseason moments. Though he's questionable to go today, so we'll see if he actually gets out there. But yeah, these guys, I feel like you know where the role's consolidated for the most part. To me, it's like if I play Reggie, it would be 5% in the hopes that he can actually get you a 25-point game.
Yeah. I think Zeke Naji is interesting as a backup. Like maybe they just don't go crazy on Jokic and he plays 32 minutes and somehow you get 2 8-minute rotations from Zeke Naji at 3,900. And all of a sudden it's like, he has a decent enough day against. Keep in mind, like Zeke Naji is likely to be playing not with Anthony Davis on the floor. He's going to see Christian Wood. He's going to see Rui. He's going to see Jackson Hayes. A lot of real dog shit like bigs from the Lakers from a defensive standpoint. I think Zeke Naji ends up being a little sneaky if you just want to think about how the Denver Nuggets are not playing for game number 1. They're playing for the playoffs. Nikola Jokic isn't going to go out there fresh off of a short summer riding ponies or owning ponies at the very least. He's not playing 36 minutes tonight.
Riding donkeys, just that enormous man, riding the smallest horse as possible. I guess my question would be, would you play Zeke Naji then with Jokic or in lineups or in lieu of Jokic or both? Is there a preference?
So this is where it starts to get interesting, because if you start thinking about correlations and simulations, my answer is whatever shows up. I don't have a preference playing them together or not together. the way that the correlations would work and the way that ownership would work, I think there's certainly a path to it. And the reason I like it a little bit more is because of Jokic's price. If Jokic were priced in like the 11 something K range, I think it might look a little bit different. But with him at 10K, now you're just allocating 13.9 for those two guys. You're taking up all of your center spots at that point. But I don't think it's crazy to think that Jokic still is awesome in 33 minutes and that Zeke Naji can provide value at 3,900 in 15.
Yeah, I mean, Jokic can give you 50 in low 30s minutes. So I don't like, if he gives you 50, that's probably enough. Like, you could certainly get beaten by somebody else. But in terms of like you feeling okay about a contrarian lineup, Jokic 50, Naji 20, I think would probably feel okay.
Zolo Baxter says, I disagree. There's a lot of bad blood between these teams. They talked a lot of shit about each other over the offseason. There's no bad blood from the Nuggets at all. They don't give a shit about the Lakers. The Lakers might have some bad blood, but I don't get the sense that the Denver Nuggets even care.
Yeah, I mean, and that's also, you know, not a factor really. Like
No.
the Lakers don't have the talent to keep up with the Nuggets. I think it's the biggest issue.
Yeah, but the Nuggets have the chip. There's no, they don't have any bad blood. They're just going to point to the scoreboard and that's going to be it. Anything else for the Denver Nuggets?
No, I mean, I feel like these guys, I don't mind getting fractional amounts of. Like a Peyton Watson has a projection on him, just not being played. I think at minimum salary, kind of like always going to be vaguely appealing on a 2-game slate. But Najee, I think, like you mentioned, more interesting play on that front. It's just guys, again, like the rest of this team, but that aren't the starters, are kind of like we talked about the Lakers, where just getting little bits of these guys in the hopes that that's the thing that makes it unique in a tournament and they can provide enough of a spike game to get there. That's the lever for them, but none of them on their face, like none of them are projected over what, 3x, like let alone 4 or 5.
No, it's not much at all. No. All right, we're at basically the halfway point, which means I got to let you guys know the sponsor of today's show, leading off the strategy show. That's going to be Bet365. Now, this is going to be very specific to some of you. If it's not specific to you, hit the like button right now. If it is specific to you, hit the like button right now. If you want to bet $5 at Bet365, you can get $150 in bonus bets. This is only available in Kentucky, Ohio, New Jersey, Virginia, Iowa, and Colorado. Some of those states, I don't know if they have internet or not, so you might not be watching, but you should definitely click the link in the description or in chat and sign up for Bet365. You want the goods. $5 to get 150. Think about that. If you could just put $5 somewhere and then open up another box and there's 150 in there, you would do that immediately. This is no different. If you live in one of those states, take advantage of this offer. Plenty of tools at oddshopper.com or at stochastic.com that could help you out in your sports betting endeavors. You have to be 21 or over. 18 in Kentucky. They usually keep those numbers lower. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. It's going to be a year, guys. It's going to be a year. No better reason to sign up than free monies.
The Kentucky dig. The poor people of Kentucky just got sports betting. They're so excited to.
Why do you got to call them poor? You say, why are you calling them poor? That's rude.
These poor minor loving people of Kentucky. Great fried chicken, though, Josh. I don't know if you've ever.
I've never been to Kentucky.
I had to go there once for my old job, Football Outsiders parent company, and Louisville was okay. I don't know. Like, people love Louisville, and it was a city. It was like a city, like any city around the country, you know.
Yeah, never been. Don't know what it's gonna take. I guess I'm gonna have to go drink some alcohols in Kentucky. That's probably the only way I'm gonna end up there.
Yeah, bourbon. Go get some classy bourbon, wood barrel bourbon, like a gentleman.
Yeah. All right. Well, game 2, nightcap, Phoenix Suns. Here we go. Everything changed. We had Bradley Beal. We have lost Bradley Beal. We do have Devin Booker. We do have Kevin Durant. We have newly minted Suns like Eric Gordon, Grayson Allen, Yusuf Nurkic, Keita Bates-Diop, Yuta Watanabe, Bol, Chimezie Metu. Lots of new dudes here in Phoenix and lots of minutes now to go around. As you look at it, we're going to have Devin Booker in the starting lineup. We're going to have Kevin Durant in the starting lineup. we are going to have Yusuf Nurkic in the starting lineup. Who are the other two starters for today? That's going to be Josh Okogie, I would imagine. And,
So one thing to note, our pal Steven Leibovitz in the chat saying that Shams is reporting that Booker's 50-50 to play. So that would also...
Did that just happen?
I believe that happened while we've been...
Oh my God, that is real.
Stevens is trustworthy as again. If anybody in the chat was just dropping that, to be like, I don't know, should I look this up? But Steven, all reliable. So that could...
Yeah, there it is.
I think Grayson Allen starts would be my guess alongside Okogie, assuming that Booker's in. If Booker's out, then I think it's Gordon, Allen, Okogie, Durant, and Nurkic would be my guess.
Well, I mean, we're not going to dig into too much of this now because Beal out, Booker 50-50. All we're doing is making shit up at 10 o'clock in the morning. So Kevin Durant, how do you feel about Kevin Durant today? 8,400, power forward only, which is, I guess, correct. I don't really have any. He probably shouldn't have another position as of yet. He was 19.5% owned. There's an opportunity now for Kevin Durant to be significantly higher owned if both Devin Booker and Bradley Beal don't play today. How do you want to handle Durant? Can we even hypothesize this right now?
So he already looked like a good play to me with Booker and also Beal in. I did see we just got a minutes update while we've been talking. So I'm trying to see what this reflects in real time.
Yeah. So I just grabbed the updated ownership too.
Okay, so I'll grab that too. Yeah, Durant looks good. I think I have no objection to him to price tag a little bit low. Obviously, consolidation of usage with no Beal out there should be a positive thing for him. No Chris Paul again this year should be a positive thing that helps him out as well. Nurkic probably takes away some of that rebound upside, but Nurkic I worry about the most out of the starters because I feel like he might end up run off the floor in a way where this is just not kind of the Nurkic matchup that's ideal. But Durant, I would say to me, second safest play on the slate behind Jokic in some respects, just in terms of getting that floor, that ceiling. I don't know if the price tag is going to work for everything, but sim-wise was getting 12% of them before the show, so not a lot. But I think the projection works well. No issue with that. Yeah, I think Durant's a strong play. Just the price might make it too weird to get him in. And if Booker somehow ends about, like Durant is, I think, another lock play of the day.
Des Morris, nice to see you back. You're crazy, but that's a ridiculous take. NFL players get hit every play and show up every week. The amount of injuries in the NFL is staggering.
No, yeah, have you watched this NFL season? There guys didn't show up yesterday getting hurt. That's not how that goes.
Yeah, no. The injuries in the NFL are insane right now.
No, they're ruining my life, my bankroll. I have to do a best ball stream after this one on Splash Play and have to talk about, Christian Watson hurt his knee and he's going to be okay, but just everybody has been hurt. That's a bad take.
All right. Look, the Durant is obviously going to get every single shot he wants if Booker ends up. I mean, whether Booker's in or out, he can do that still. But without Booker, I think Durant's just going to be letting it go. We'll try to keep an eye. That's going to be one where we're going to dig in a little bit more on the deeper dive and live before lock. I think what we need to touch on now are the value pieces around Phoenix. Josh Okogie is the highest owned Sun, 4K, small forward eligible, 36% owned. I don't know really how you get away from that. The position is really shallow. And now that he can probably play upwards of 30 minutes today, or might have to play upwards of 30 minutes just because of the amount of guys that are just missing. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that number go up. I think he looks like the easiest guy to get to from the Suns.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Nice projection on him. Nice price tag. 29-minute projection from Stochastic with Bradley Beal being rolled out. So Okogie is the player you're going to have a really hard time avoiding. Sim-wise, again, before the show, ran the Sims and had Bradley Beal still in the lineups. It was getting 75% Okogie. He just opens up the players you want to get to. So he's probably the most live pivot point, I guess, in terms of just like a fragile projection guy who could easily not shoot the ball at all in his entire time on the court. But I think, in terms of on his face kind of play, Okogie's the best play on the slate relative to just, opening up everything you want to do.
Guy I like a bit more than everybody else, it seems. Maybe not I've got a much higher projection than what I'm seeing around the industry. And if we do lose Booker, I'm going to feel really good about it. I really like Yusuf Nurkic today at 6,300. The problem is center only, and we got a lot of them, including his former front court mate in Nikola Jokic. How do you feel about Nurkic here making his debut for the Suns?
He looks good. I mean, sort of hard to expect him, I think, to keep the 22% usage rate that he had last year, just given the team. I guess with Beal being out, maybe that comes out in the wash and he can't actually keep that, at least for this game. In terms of rebounding, like Durant's value over the last few years, kind of been playing without a real center, getting a little more rebounds and all of that. Nurkic is going to soak up every rebound he can. Like, and I imagine it's going to be 4 outside, just him in the middle, grabbing everything he wants. So he gets to play the Jonas Valanciunas role here. And I do think that bodes well for him. I guess my one point of concern would be like, if you're Golden State, you don't have Draymond. I think you just go 3-4 small guys and see what you can do. And if that's the case, like Nurkic could get hunted a little and maybe you see Drew Eubanks come in. But I think this spot is like a very important one to slate where if Nurkic is good, he's going to have the great day. And if he gets hunted off the floor, like Eubanks come in and be, that mid-tier center play that nobody's going to be on.
Yeah, the lack of ownership on Eubanks is also interesting. Center in general for Phoenix, I'm intrigued by. I like Nurkic, but it's, 2 quick fouls. And then Drew Eubanks is going to play 22, 23 minutes at 4,700. He's good. Like, he's a solid point per dollar guy. They wanted Drew Eubanks. I said this on the process this morning. They went out and signed Drew Eubanks. They ended up kind of with Yusuf Nurkic. I think they like Drew Eubanks. I would not be surprised to see him usurp Yusuf Nurkic by the time the season ends. Look, we got to remember, Nurk's not the same guy that he was before he broke his leg. It's greatly changed the way that he plays. I think an unowned, and I mean unowned, less than 1% Drew Eubanks, very interesting today.
Yeah, I'm fully agreed on that. Like Eubanks, we've seen play, Warriors types of teams, if not literally the Warriors over his career, and just be a guy that can get out there and close out on threes and can do those things where Nurkic does not have the mobility anymore to do that. Like he can hoover up rebounds, he can be a dominant post player, but he's kind of that, that vintage center type, whereas Drew Eubanks is a modern 5 that can get out there and actually play some defense. So I think for this particular matchup, like if the Warriors start hot, it's possible I switch to Eubanks too. Might not even be foul trouble. So I agree with you. Eubanks, I think, has a couple outs. And if he's going to be 0% owned, like I'd like to have 10 times that 0.
Yeah. So you'd like to have 0?
I'd like to have a slightly more elevated 0.
Eric Gordon, Jordan Goodwin, Keita Bates-Diop, Grayson Allen, Yuta Watanabe, Nas Little. If we lose Booker here, there's so many minutes to go around. Value is going to be the key to the Suns. Getting it right will be the most difficult part of it all. Who's the best value play for the Suns that isn't Josh Okogie?
I think so. Based on the stochastic minutes right now, they're projecting Gordon for 27.3. I do think that will make Gordon like the best play. Gordon, we know, a professional player, can get out there, get a shot, can create a little bit for others. Probably not add a whole lot in any other categories, but still, him being out there, I think he's the most logical vessel to soak up a lot of what Booker and Beal do. So I don't mind him. But I think Grayson Allen, awkward price tag, a guy that has been involved in the preseason, at least as a backup. I think he's kind of interesting too. Again, like just not enough guards out there to go, no campaign anymore. None of these guys that have been there the last few years that have been swapping in and being parts of the Suns backcourt. And I think Allen, to me, gritty defense, can cover guys, can be the guy that chases stuff around screens. I think that can open up enough opportunity for him to get there. So I'd put Gordon above him, but I think Grayson Allen kind of live. And this Suns bench, I think, like kind of fun to go to, especially if Booker Simone's about and these guys still don't get a ton of ownership.
This is going to be one that I'll dig into later on with this Beal news and Booker news. Like, I have not made updates to anything to figure out where I stand on Phoenix, but I'll be back for the deeper dive at 5:30. And that is where those kinds of questions will start to matter. Do you want to add anything else for Phoenix? This seems like a team that is really not worth talking about at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I think it's tough to say right now with the Booker part being a big, sword of Damocles hanging over it. But yeah, I think these guys overall, interesting bench. I think a more live bench. In some ways, this game can get weirder, I think, than that Lakers-Denver game, where the way that game gets weird is like the Lakers hang in and maybe win that game. For this one, it's like there's different ways that Phoenix can play, different ways that Golden State can play that force Phoenix to play another way. And Phoenix could also still get success with like Nurkic in the middle and force Golden State maybe to be a little bigger. So there's a lot of ways this one can go. And I think playing different configurations of how like the game script works out is probably a good move.
I've taken too long to get to this point. We're going to have to zip through the Warriors, but I gotta plug us to start. Stokastic.com. We got the deal for you guys. It's the first day of the NBA season. Use the promo code TIPOFF. Get 20% off any NBA package you are looking for. I want you to go to the Sims packages. There are links in the description. There may be links popping up in chat. If you're looking to try out our new Sims tool, which will allow you to generate a contest, simulate the lineups against each other, take the best ROI lineups that you want, or sort them however you would like to. Play whichever lineups you need to play. And if anything happens after the first game, you can use this tool for late swaps using simulations. Brand new setup here, guys. There are videos on our YouTube channel from Greg and Steve Buzzard, you know him as DeColts, that break down this entire process with the new NBA Sims tool and with this new late swap tool. This is where you want to be, guys. This is the best tool in the industry, and you can sign up and get it right now for 20% off. We don't do a ton of discounts on these Sims any longer. It's a very different package than what it was before. Sign up now. Be ready, especially for tomorrow. When we have 12 games and there's a lot of news, late swaps are paramount. And you're going to want to use these tools to do it. Make sure you're checking out those videos. Sign up using the links in the description. Again, 20% off. Come check it out now. This is the time to do it. Everything's locked and loaded and ready for you guys. Because we got 2 games tonight and 12 tomorrow. The Golden State Warriors, the final team to talk about. We'll get through this in about 5 minutes. Not too hard to talk about Golden State. Since we know that we don't have Draymond, the whole Chris Paul starting, not starting thing, easy to get to. Chris Paul, 83% owned. He's 5,600. How do you get away from Chris Paul?
I don't know how you do it easily. The Sims did push me towards 50% Chris Paul, so it does feel like the ownership there, maybe not the greatest ownership in the world. I still think he's got a very solid floor, still has a ceiling in this kind of game. Definitely can do a little bit of everything in a Draymond-y way, besides the defensive parts that Draymond sometimes obviously slips at a little bit these days, but still obviously, just able to handle things that Chris Paul can't. But the creation, all of that, getting able to get Steph Curry shots that are going to look a little better. I think Paul is going to be in play for all that stuff. He's probably the best projection play on the slate, so I get why the ownership would go there, but it's always going to be the case. 2-game slate. If I find some ways to get different, I think I'd rather fade Chris Paul than fade a Jokic, let's say. That's sort of where I think Chris Paul lands for me.
Between Chris Paul at 80-something% and Andrew Wiggins at 70%, those mid 5K salaries for 2 solid NBA starters, they're very clearly the first 2 guys that you're putting into a cash lineup because there's nothing better point per dollar out there.
Yeah, and Wiggins too, I think, looks a little better sim-wise because the Sims did push me to match the field on Wiggins 72.5%, whereas for Paul coming a little bit lower kind of makes sense because guards can be more of a heat check than a powered forward spot can be, like Wiggins has. So I think the positionality of Wiggins probably makes him a slightly better play relative to a slate.
I do think he's a little bit easier to get to. And then you get to the third most popular guy, Kevon Looney. Yes, we have not named Steph Curry or Klay Thompson quite yet. Kevon Looney, 50% owned, 5,300. No Draymond, probably going to see a couple extra minutes, although watch out for Dario Saric, Usman Garuba. They have options. But as I look at it, Looney, great per minute dude. I think he'll look interesting with Chris Paul out there. I don't know if that's going to kill the spacing too much or not, but it's another center. Add him to the list with your Nurkic's and your Eubankses and all these guys. Where do you like that ownership on Looney?
Yeah, I don't mind it. I'm going to actually sim-wise project to get a little bit more than Looney. Of the Looney shares, 59% Sims compared to 54% ownership. So I don't hate it. I actually think you mentioned a guy that I'm intrigued by just because of the price tag. And again, the chat, it's NBA season. Revenge game, Dario Saric. Who could forget his stint in Phoenix after wandering around like the guy in Kung Fu of other teams since then. But he is a guy that makes sense. Again, if the Warriors do go smaller and try to space it out a little more, Sarge can knock down some threes. So I think he's kind of interesting play. But Looney, just a nice projection, another center play that I think makes sense and is probably a little more live than some of the other center pivots that we've talked about, at least in terms of the projection.
Klay Thompson, 45% owned, feels a tad high to me. He's just not that kind of guy, but if he's healthy, he does have shooting guard small forward that really helps, but that feels a tad high to me. Steph at 20%, 9,200, probably comes up a little bit if we end up losing Booker early enough. How do you feel about Steph and Klay?
I think these are the tournament plays that are probably going to have the biggest ceilings relative to their ownership, so I don't mind it. I think that one of the ways that multiple Phoenix guys get there, like when I was playing with lineups last night, when we thought Beal would be in, I was like, okay, if I play Beal, Booker, and Durant, somebody's got to press them on the other side. And that's probably has to be an outlier day for Steph Curry or an outlier day for Klay Thompson. So I think these guys have some utility there. And I guess the other side of it would be if you completely fade the Suns, like let's say you don't play Durant, you don't play, if Booker's out there, don't play either of those guys. Maybe the way they don't get there would be Steph putting up a 50-point game. The Suns just call it off early because Beal's hurt, Booker's banged up. So I think there's a lot of ways to play Curry and Thompson, but Curry in particular as like a key part of how this slate goes for everybody else. And I think that's sort of their best usage is that you're playing them in unique builds that allow you to get away from stuff that looks very good and you might get to otherwise.
After that, the only other guy that's pulling any sort of significant ownership is Jonathan Kuminga, small forward, power forward, 4,600, looking like he's going to be a little bit more involved this year than he was previously. If he's getting, 24 minutes or so, I like that salary. I think the ownership is fine. Definitely a guy that you want to work into your lineups.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would get about double the field on Kuminga based on the pre-show sims. So I don't, maybe a little bit less than that, but about, like 1.5x the field for Kuminga. And I don't hate it, not a great projection on him. Not going to be a guy that comes along easily, I think, but still good enough, still projected to get, 25 minutes in this game. And I think he can fit a lot of different ways the Warriors would want to attack this. So I think Kuminga's a solid play. It's just, he's like a lot of these guys we talked about, not the sexiest play, but he's like a solid play in certain game theory kind of configurations.
I don't have a lot of love for the rest of the bench, Peyton, Corey Joseph, Moses Moody, Garuba, because we've seen Steve Kerr play, 12 guys a night and everybody gets like 6 minutes at the bottom end. So I don't really love getting to the bottom of Golden State because I just don't trust Steve Kerr.
Yeah, same page. The only guy I think I would play out of that group would be Saric and some amount where you're not playing Looney.
800 viewers are here right now. 200 likes. That's actually too low. So for all of you that are here that have not hit the like button yet, please do so. Anything else you want to touch on for this slate for today? We're already through 55 minutes of this show.
It flies by. Oh, it's great to do a show with Josh here, so I'll touch on that real fast. But glad to have the season back. I think for a 2-game slate like this one, I've done fairly well with NFL showdowns over the years, and I think these kind of slates play a little more like a showdown where it's not always about trying to make the prettiest and best lineup. It's about playing whatever somebody else isn't going to play, especially if you are playing the $10 200K tournament on DraftKings. So a lot of these players that we talked about here, like we made sure to cover everybody because that's the format of the show, but also like some of these guys, like they just don't project well, but one of them will make a winning lineup because that's just what you need to actually get unique on a slate like this one with how good projections are. So that's sort of the main thing, I think, being willing to play at least one shitty guy and a good portion of lineups.
Well, folks, that's going to do it. NFL strategy show coming up next. Don't stop hitting that like button. You can find this show on our podcast feed if you're looking at it, or it's going to be on YouTube if you need it. Links in the description if you want to sign up for our Sims package. That's going to be the promo code TIPOFF, gets you 20% off. I will be back with Lofty later tonight at 5:30 for the deeper dive, but NFL strategy show coming up next. Thanks to Spags. Thanks to Jordan behind the virtual glass. First show in the books. Nice to see. Talk to you later, everybody.